All right, we're back with another exciting edition of Extreme Entrepreneurship. And of course, I do have my usual guest, CJ, is here with us. How have you been?
I've been good. I've been really good. It's been a week since I last saw you.
No, it's good to see you again.
Busy week. Yeah.
It's been a busy week. So much happening in Zambia with the show and everything. So, it's quite a lot to do with. Another great conversation waiting for us today. And our focus is predominantly on three things. We'll talk about them as we go. So number one, we want to talk about values, especially for business people, because these days, most decisions are guided by how much is involved, as opposed to, what other things are in there that may not be seen in the very beginning.
Yep.
And then also talk about the value of perception and also context. But I want us to begin our conversation with values. You're a businessman. What kind of values, for example, drive your decision making? Whether it's in business or in your general relationship with others in terms of staff, partners, or maybe employees that you have?
I love this conversation because I learned quite a long time ago that I was sort of a values-driven type of entrepreneur, and not just in my business life, but also in my personal life. So it's knowing. A lot of people don't actually know what their values are, and so doing an inventory on your values, what's important to you, in terms of work life or contributions or family or what sort of experience you want to have. I found that to be invaluable and sort of becoming sort of a North Star for me. So I always have a direction I'm going in, and when opportunities kind of avail themselves, I can vet them based on what my values are. And so early on for me, I didn't want to trade time for money. That was a big value. I was willing to take on more risk if I could have more passion in what I was doing, as opposed to more stability. And a lot of people would see it the other way. They'd want more stability because a lot of it is a reflection of sort of the background you come from and what kind of upbringing you had. I value travel. I like being around interesting people. And as an entrepreneur, especially if you're doing your own businesses, you kind of get to choose the people that you want to be around. So that's one of my values. I like being around positive people, and I like doing things that are scalable. And so, knowing these things, when an opportunity comes around, I can kind of see where they fit in my value sort of grading system, and it makes it easy to make decisions that might otherwise be a little more difficult. Especially entrepreneurs tend to want to say yes to a lot of things because they get excited, and so they do need some governor, some way of kind of grading the quality of the opportunities before them. But a lot of people don't understand my trajectory. Like, I started in the music business, and then I got into production work, and I did a lot of media stuff in Los Angeles and New York, and then suddenly, I'm helping people build houses in Haiti, and the next thing I'm doing a hotel in Costa Rica, and then suddenly I'm doing development in Africa. And if you were to look casually, you might say, well, this guy's all over the map. He doesn't know what he wants to do, and he just keeps bouncing around. But that's actually not the case. They're all values-driven career decisions. Like, I really love media, and I love communication. I love being around creative people. That all makes sense. That's why you would be in New York, Los Angeles, in the media business. But I like scale and travel and starting things, and that's why one might go international. I'm in the hotel business now because when I got out of the music business, I looked at the things available to me, and I thought, okay, hotels, people, scalability, international travel. It's kind of like show business because you're hosting people and you're curating an experience. And that's like, for me, like making records. It's kind of almost the same. So that's how I sort of vet my opportunities. And when I speak to people, especially young entrepreneurs, they NFTs, crypto, Bitcoin, private equity, like a lot of those things just don't tick my box because they don't really kind of fit in my value system. Doesn't mean they're not interesting, and they may be in your value system, but at least I have a way of vetting these things so that my course has a direction. And that's why I encourage people to really get in touch with what's important to them, what their value sets are.
Have you ever had to turn down an opportunity that was very lucrative, but it wasn't in line with your values?
I have, actually, and especially in development, because, we do a lot of development in Africa. And one of my core values is I don't want to do, I have a lot of respect for the built environment, as we call it. And it's really important to me that the architecture and the design enhances the quality of life for people in that built environment. And so one of my values is I want to be able to be proud of every single structure that we build. And so there are architectural values that I have. There are numerous things in terms of design that are really important to me, and that I won't put my name on if they don't kind of fit it, if you know what I mean. And I think there's been other opportunities. I mean, people have asked me if I wanted to do nursing homes or get involved in some pharmaceutical business. Various investments come up. And the money might be attractive, but you only have so much time, and that's why it's good to really kind of stay in your lane, because those things amplify each other too, right? Everything I do amplifies the other things that I do. And I know that we both know guys who are just all over the place, right? They're doing this, they've got some farming, I'm investing in, blah, blah, blah. They're doing minerals, and they're chasing money. And none of it seems cohesive. And there's always a danger that people who get too spread out their story becomes a little frayed, if you know what I mean. And when people come to me with proposals, one of the sort of the subliminal things I'm kind of noticing is like, are they really in this game, or are they like in every game? Because if they're in every game, then they're not really in any game, and that's a tough partner to have, because you want people who are really in it.
How do others look at your values? Because there's sometimes that you make a decision, and to you don't think twice about it because you know what your values are. But to the person that's watching from a distance, or those that work with you, they're feeling, that thing where what's in someone's head and you think it's not making sense to you, because to others it's a straightforward issue, but to you it's not in tandem with your values. How then does that affect your relationships with others? The fact that your values are not their values. How then do you create that synergy when you work with others?
That's such a relevant question, because I was just having a conversation with my HR director, and we were talking exactly about this. We have a vast team. There's probably 150 people that work for the Urban Hotel Group, and there's a tier of heads of departments and exco and whatnot. And they're all great people. They're all really nice people. I like all of them. But it's clear that sometimes our values are not aligned. And if we don't have a shared sense of purpose and shared values, then all havoc breaks loose. Like, one of the things I was kind of busting a couple of guys on is, starting meetings late. Your culture is determined by the values that you promote. And so if you're promoting a sense of looseness around respect for other people's time, or respect for deadlines, or respect for any number of aspects that come into human, relations, it deteriorates the culture, in my view. Like if we run meetings late, if we don't respect each other's time, if we shirk our responsibilities in terms of taking care of the building, or these become corrosive factors. I think people have to have the same sense of pace, sense of purpose, same sense of mission, and it all boils down to values and respect, ultimately.
How easy is it for you to work with people who don't share your values?
It's almost impossible, to be honest. It's almost impossible. I recently had an issue with a fellow. In Africa, there's a different sense of time here than you would find in like Northern European countries, where in Germany, if you're late 1 minute, it's like rude. If you're 5 minutes early, it's also rude. In the United States, you get up to about 10 minutes late. If you do that twice, you won't get another meeting, because they're really they're really territorial about their time. In Africa, I had a meeting at noon. They showed up at 12:30, and there was no sense that there was any issue. And I have other business associates that are very much like that, because I'm working with some Congolese guys right now that like they just show up when they show up. No matter what time you say. That's really hard to work with in your own organization. And if you can't keep your word, or if you can't tell the truth, if you can't be on time, I actually cannot really work with you.
How patient are you with someone to get, values aligned? How patient are you?
Not that patient. Because you vet them, you vet people before you build those relationships, I think.
Yeah.
You vet them because time is valuable, and you can kind of get that information pretty quickly. You have 1 or 2 meetings, you see what they're about, right? So, I don't know. People are who they are, aren't they? Like I've had really tough conversations with some really key people that I work with, and it was all about that, like commitments, keeping to your word, honoring deadlines, honoring timelines. And what I realized is, like, you can't really get mad about it, and you can't really judge about it. You just have to know it, and then mitigate for it, and decide that, look, we kind of operate on different clocks. You'll frustrate me. I'll frustrate you, because you'll think I'm always mad at you. So at least we know that going in, and we can work appropriately. You know what I mean?
And then also the other thing is on the subject of context, closely related to values. On the subject of context, how do you feel context guides relationships? Because we may not see everything the same.
Yeah.
You just mentioned the subject of time, for example.
Yep.
Someone will show up 30 minutes late, and to them it's okay. It's normal.
Exactly.
To you can't even focus on the content of the meeting, because in your mind you're constantly thinking, exactly, what's wrong with them? Are they okay? So talk to me on how context guides relationships and the value it brings to them.
So context is I have learned as I've gotten more mature how important context is. And context is simply, how you frame something, right? Like if I frame a situation to be negative, the context is that I'm seeing it as a negative situation. Or the context could be that it's an opportunity, It's a thing that needs to be fixed. It's a thing that could be better, or that has room for growth. And I guess some people call that mindset. I suppose that you could call it like that. But I think how you see the world and how you see things determines your experience of the world and your experience of things. Like some people, they will frame the idea of going to Africa as just way too risky and too dangerous and, too crazy, And others will see it as, wow, what an opportunity, what an adventure. And that's what I mean when I talk about context. And I try to bring it, and it's a thing that you kind of need to check yourself on, isn't it? Like you need to be aware of how you are seeing things, what context you're bringing to it. Because that informs everything about your experience of it. And sometimes we'll have an unhelpful, I won't say unhealthy, I'll just say an unhelpful way. We'll take a view of a person or a situation, a relationship, especially with a loved one, and we'll see it through a frame of what's wrong about it, as opposed to, what if my context is more about you, Suwi? Like, we're not getting along, and I'm focused on why we're not getting along and how it's affecting me, but I could focus on you and like, what's going on with you, and how can I make it better, and how can I bridge this gap? And that's what I mean by context, because context, you kind of create your life through context, don't you? And how you see the world.
How can business partners, because for me, and here's a background to my question, because most times human beings, like we said, are different. Now you've got two different human beings coming together, for example, on a business venture, and they, let's say, put in 50-50.
Yep.
But then their context is not aligned in terms of how they see things, how, someone else is more risk averse, someone else has got a different risk appetite. And so we are two individuals who are different generally. Yeah. But the biggest interest we have is, look, we want to build a hotel with the two of us. Yeah. But then we keep seeing things differently. And sometimes you find you keep butting heads and whatnot. Yeah. How do you manage that?
Well, going in, you have to have an understanding of what the partners bring to it. And I've had these conversations also with partners, because if I engage a partner and I'm responsible for, like, generally with our products, I'm the guy who's responsible for the look and feel. I do a lot of the capital raising and all that, so like all the normal stuff you would have to do as a developer or an investor. But specifically to me, I'm responsible for like the look and feel and the guest experience and what the vision is. That's me. I'm the vision guy in the context of this relationship, this team that we have. I have other partners who are more into the structured financing aspect or the project management aspect or the development aspect of it. We choose each other because we believe in each other. Like, I believe you're the right guy to take lead on that, and I'm not going to micromanage you. I'm the right guy to do this, or at least you voted with your feet and you partnered with me, so don't micromanage me. We respect each other, we'll give each other input, but you bought into my thing, so my expectation is that you won't second guess me too much, and I trust you, and I'm going to support you, but I won't second guess you either. And that's what makes a good partnership, and you know that going in. Now, when that breaks down, and it does, and I've had it happen even recently on a couple of other projects that are not hotel related, then it all goes pear-shaped, because ultimately, it's always better if one is leading it, because then it's not convoluted. You have a fully executed vision. When two people kind of like are trying to negotiate, like, well, I want some input and you get some input, and what I always find is that you wind up with the lowest common denominator, right? Because nobody is really happy with it, and if nobody's really happy with it, nobody else will be happy with it. So going in, the direct answer to your question is, if I partner with you, Suwi, I'm buying into you, and what you do, and I have to let you be you. And if you partner with me, you're buying into what I'm about, and you have to let me be me. And we have to know that going in. And relationships have an arc, right? So we could decide, you know what, man, your vision's not as good as I thought it was, or fair enough, that happens. But in terms of what we set out to do, we have to kind of abide by that framework, and then renegotiate later for ongoing stuff. That's how I look at it personally.
All right. So we've talked about values. We've talked about context. Now let's focus on perception. And perception right now, I feel like, is a big deal, because with social media now, people are a bit careless what they post online, on TikTok, whatever, because to them it's just social media. But for the most part, based on what we see, we then form a perception about you. And that perception sometimes may be costly in terms of opportunities because of how you're perceived. Yeah, you may be good enough, you may be qualified, you may be competent, but the perception of you is that this guy is just a joker, he's just a fun guy to be around, not for business. What role does perception play, for example, in terms of opportunities, general relationships with people, but then also building yourself as an individual?
Yeah. So perception, the old adage, perception is reality. In creating our perceptions and drawing our perceptions, we really kind of have to be really clear about the inputs, right? It's almost like you have to make sure that your inputs are as pure as they can be, so that what you perceive is as true to what is real as can be. So meaning that if I draw conclusions about you that may not be true, like, Suwi didn't smile when I walked in, he must be mad, maybe I did something, and maybe in your mind, you just have some stress from maybe your kid's sick, or maybe you lost your dog or something. It has nothing to do with me. So that's why I say it's really important to kind of make sure that your inputs are correct and you don't draw conclusions. But likewise, my perception of myself is how I present myself to the world, and that might be based on bad inputs also. Like, I'm really bad at doing hotels, or I'm not athletic, or, I'm not very smart, or things like that, which may be internal perceptions, which you then project to the world as being inferior or not confident or insecure. In the context of entrepreneurship, we all know that confident people bring about opportunities and they can activate things in ways that unconfident people can't. People are drawn to it. And so your perceptions of yourself become really, really critical in terms of like the stew that you need to make the world have a positive reaction to you. In the context of how you present yourself to the world, it's really important, really, really, really key.
How do you manage perception? How do you turn it around? Where first impression was bad, you want to correct perceptions. Maybe others have this negative perception about you. Maybe people have a perception about you that's not actually your reality. How do you correct perceptions?
You know what they say, you can never make another first impression, right? Yeah. So I think the real answer is the hard answer, which is through consistency. I know that we've both had an opinion about somebody that over time has evolved, because you know what? I didn't really like that person at first, but they're actually quite cool, or they're very dedicated, or they work really hard, or they've impressed me some way, and maybe I was wrong, And that's it. Consistency, reliability. And I tend to think also, there's nothing more unattractive than trying to make somebody think something about you. That's why I have such a thing about like social media as it is, because it's really trying to craft sort of a narrative so that other people will think something about you, like how interesting that guy's life is, or how beautiful his girlfriend is, or what a wonderful family they have, or how much they travel, or stuff. So you're crafting a narrative, which may or may not be true. In the context of the question that you just asked me, I think at some point you just have to let it go and not try and change anybody's mind, but just be your own guy, your own girl. Be consistent, have integrity, stick to your values, and you can't help but get noticed by the right people. You may blow one or two opportunities. Maybe this person won't come around again, but it doesn't really matter, because it's all about you. It's not about what people think.
All right, so we've talked about values, we've talked about perception, and also we've talked about, what's the other thing again? We've talked about context.
Yeah.
How do these three things work together? How can someone make these three work for them in terms of advancement in their business, in their personal relationships, and just for their personal development?
It's like a three-legged stool, isn't it? Right? So first and foremost, audit your values. Know what your values are, because like I said before, make that your North Star. Make that the guide by which you decide things. And this is not just a business context or a business comment. It's really about your whole life. Like what's the trajectory of your life going to be, and what's it going to be based on? Figure out what your values are, and you'll never have difficulty making another decision. Context is more about how you see things. What is your attitude when you look at situations? Are you, do you look at it from a negative frame or a positive frame? Do you see opportunity or do you see fear or a risk? And audit that. Like, look, because you can change the context of something very quickly by just asking a different question. Instead of why me, why not me? This is a perfect opportunity for me to do X, Y, or Z. And then perception, realize that everybody sees the world through their own perspective, their own set of filters and biases and experiences and upbringings and backgrounds. And knowing that, you will appreciate that everybody is going to have their own perspective of a situation. And it's not wrong. It's just based on whatever their individual cocktail of references are. But from a personal context, in terms of your personal power and your own success, audit your own perceptions of how you see yourself in the world, and see if they match others, and make sure that your self-perceptions, that you're telegraphing to the world are the kinds of perceptions that will take you where you want to go. Like, you know, I'm smart, but I'm getting smarter, or I'm becoming a better XYZ, or I'm not a good public speaker now, but everything I'm doing is going to get me there, as opposed to, you know, I'm not a good public speaker, or I'll never learn that, or I don't have the opportunities. Your self-perceptions will, along with your values and how you frame things, the context around which you put things, are the most powerful tools you have to engineer the future you want. And just make sure you know what you're working with, and if you see some room for improvement, then improve and do what it takes, and find some mentors, and don't be afraid to self-mentor, because we all have that inner voice that tells us what's true. We don't need outside teachers. We just sometimes need outside inspiration. But we can teach ourselves if we're honest with ourselves.
All right. Thank you, CJ.
Thank you, Suwi. It was fun.
I had a great conversation on extreme entrepreneurship. Next time I want us to talk about emotional intelligence. I feel like most people really struggle there, especially with dealing with people. Mostly people. I feel like that's a strong point.
And next week we'll do an EQ IQ on you to see how much emotional intelligence you're working with. How about that?
Yeah, we'll do that. Join us for our next edition of Extreme Entrepreneurship next time. Otherwise, thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to having you again.